Congressman, have you talked to the president about a pardon, sir?
You apologize.
Chris Collins dodging questions from reporters outside a federal court in New York City today. It's another nail in the political coffin of the disgraced Western New York Congressman. Chris Collins appearing in a Manhattan federal court to plead guilty today to 2 charges related to insider trading.
His plea capping off a day that began with his official resignation in Washington. 7 Eyewitness News reporter Ali Tui was in court for the now former congressman's guilty plea. She joins us live tonight from Manhattan. Good evening, Ali.
Jeff and Ashley, regret is not the proper word. That sentiment coming from Chris Collins under oath today as he admitted his actions in an insider trading case. Collins pleading guilty to 2 counts, conspiring to commit securities fraud and making false statements to the FBI. After months of denial, Chris Collins admitted to the crimes, and in his own words, he was shocked and devastated when he learned that the clinical trials for an MS drug for which he sat on the company's board had failed. Quote, "I can't remember what I told Cameron," he said of telling his son the news in June of 2017, but it was to the effect that the drug trial had failed. And Collins said he knew it would have a devastating financial effect on his family and his friends. Cameron was able to sell his stock shares based on the information Collins provided. Collins also admitted to lying to the FBI when they came knocking on his door some 10 months later. Quote, "I falsely denied to agents that I told Cameron the results before they came out," he confessed. "I knew it was illegal and improper." Collins apologized to his wife and son and also to his constituents. Quote, "I tried to be a model citizen and I'm embarrassed and dismayed because the actions are anything but what a model citizen would take." Here's what U.S. Attorney Jeffrey Berman had to say moments after Collins entered his guilty plea.
Collins helped write the laws of this country, yet acted as if the law didn't apply to him. This courthouse is a representation, personifies the ideal of equal justice under law. No one is above the law.
We learned a plea deal was reached back on September 24th. We have requested a copy of that agreement. The judge making it clear, though, it is up to him to decide what sentence will be handed down. Collins faces up to 5 years in prison and a $250,000 fine. He is scheduled to be sentenced in January. We're live outside the Manhattan Federal Courthouse. Ali Tui, 7 Eyewitness News.
All right, Ali, thank you. Quite a day for Chris Collins. And it all began this morning with the House officially accepting his resignation from Congress.
I hereby submit my resignation effective immediately, September 30th, 2019, as United States Representative of the 27th District of New York. Attached is a letter I submitted to the Secretary of the New York State. Signed sincerely, Chris Collins.
Well, in a radio interview this morning with WAMC, Governor Cuomo talked about a special election to fill the seat that is now left open by Collins. He says he needs time to review the law before he can make a decision on when that might be.
Once I declare an election, there's a certain amount of time to do it. I don't believe legally I can call it for this November, which would be convenient because people are going to the polls anyway.
So you heard it there. Cuomo stopped short of committing to an election date, but says he hopes to fill the vacancy sooner rather than later. Regardless of whether a Democrat or Republican wins, Cuomo says there is a lot going on in Western New York right now, and the area deserves representation.
As you can imagine, reaction to Collins' resignation continues to pour in tonight. Democrat Nate McMurray was narrowly defeated by Collins last November, despite the fact that Collins was under a federal indictment. Today, McMurray says, is a new day for Western New York.
Today it's official, but for a long time we've all known we have not had representation. There's not been a man there having open meetings, representing the people. He has not been able to speak or to speak on our behalf or to vote in committee. We have not had representation for Western New York for too long.
Well, at least 2 candidates have their eye on the 27th congressional seat, Nate McMurray and Republican Chris Jacobs.
New York's senior senator, Democrat Chuck Schumer, not having much to say about Collins' resignation during an event in Genesee County today. But here's what he had to say about a possible replacement.
Well, I'd say that we ought to have an election as quickly as possible because this is an area so diverse with its farms, its manufacturing, its tourism, And, 700,000 people, suburban, urban, and rural, it needs representation. So they ought to.
There are plenty of legal questions tonight swirling around all that's gone on with Chris Collins. My colleague Keith Radford here now with an expert on the subject here in studio. Keith?
All right, thanks, Jeff. Joining us once again tonight is former Supreme Court Justice Penny Wolfgang. Thank you for coming in.
You're welcome.
She acts as our legal analyst from time to time. We know a lot more today than we did yesterday. He pled guilty to 2 counts, but this was an 11-count indictment. What happened to the other 9 counts?
They're going to be dismissed, if they haven't already, by the prosecutor.
Why? This is part of a deal, I presume?
Yes, yes. Probably a lot of them would have been cumulative. The sentences probably would have been concurrent in any case because a lot of them involve the same charges, the same kind of transactions, they're just different ways of framing the same crime. So yes, and it's a common procedure in plea bargains or in court proceedings to dismiss the other charges after the defendant pleads guilty to something.
And then we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow when Collins' son and his soon-to-be father-in-law will make their change of pleas in court. Maybe they've worked out a deal where they won't go as hard on the son.
It's possible. It's possible that they'll allow him to plead guilty to lesser charges, also dismiss some of the charges. And yes, I think it's very plausible because, common sense was telling us that the reason that the congressman did plead guilty in the long run was to help his son or to avoid his son going to jail or getting a harsh sentence or being convicted.
All right, both these counts carry a maximum penalty of 5 years in prison and then 3 years probation after that. What do you think the former congressman is looking at?
Well, a lot of people are saying look at Martha Stewart because one of the convictions is what we call the Martha Stewart conviction, lying to the FBI. But I think that really, in common sense, that he would receive a harsher sentence than Martha Stewart.
Yeah, she only got 5 months, and she only there was a $40,000 amount of money involved. This is much larger than that.
And it's another conviction, a separate felony conviction. So the agreement is that it would be 57 months, or if it was more than that, he could have his right to appeal. So we're going to, speculate that the judge is going to, following the guidelines and following precedent and so forth, that he will receive some jail time. And I think it would be more than 5 months. Like we said, it's a more serious charge.
Well, we'll find out on the 17th of January, I think, is when the court has set sentencing. Your Honor, thank you for coming and talking with us today. Back to the desk in the studio.
All right, thank you both. You can read more about the resignation of Congressman Chris Collins and his change of plea in that insider trading case. It's right now for you on our website at WKBW.com.